Well, hey there. Welcome back to VG Emporium. I'm your host, Rage Cage, and today is Special Orders Day. Yep, got enough requests in to do a bulk order because, like any business, gotta do what I can to keep costs down while also keeping up the quality that I want to have here. Oh, the beauty of margins. But yes, if this is your first time listening and you're wondering, what special order? Well, it's basically my version of song requests, SPOs, and you can request or put a special order in by sending me an email at vgemporium@gmail.com. And I figured out the formula. I'm going to wait until I get like 6 requests in until, before I bulk order them in. And, it's by order of request. And, I'll be doing a dedicated episode every time I just get 6 orders. Isn't that neat? And in this episode, I'll have some returning customers from the last SPO episode, as well as some new. And this is a pretty diverse batch of orders, I must say. So without further ado, this first order comes from a returning customer, Professor Tom, of the Shujin Academy VGM Club podcast. And the track that he ordered in was Layer Cake from Persona 5, composed by Shoji Meguro. And he added a little note to his order saying, I listened to the Shop Tunes episode number 2 of VG Emporium, and I liked it. I wanted you to play Layer Cake from Persona 5, but you didn't, so I'm formally requesting it. And I gotta say, from my observations of this guy, that he's a little obsessed with the music of Persona. Kinda like how I'm a little obsessed with the obscure FM tunage and chiptunes. We all have our quirks. So now a bit about this track, Layer Cake. It is the theme for the weapon shop in Persona 5 called Untouchable Airsofts, or in Japanese, Military Shopu Untouchable, and it's run by the fellow Munehisa Iwai. And as the English name would suggest, he sells airsoft guns, the kind that fire those little plastic pellets. But it's basically a front because, the protagonist, this guy will sell them weapons, melee, long range, armor, even like some special items. And you can sell treasures that you find throughout the game to this guy as well to, make cash to buy more weapons. Now, as far as this actual song goes, I'm really liking it. It's funky, jazzy, like most Persona 5 music I've been hearing lately. I haven't actually been actively listening to it, just mostly hearing it from other podcasts. So that's my experience with it. So it's part of the reason why I didn't make it onto that shop theme episode, but also it's because I'm looking for this particular sound, like as I mentioned on that episode 2, this sound of the Depachika, Konbini, the like Supamakato, just like that. I don't know how to explain it. It's just this particular sound that you would hear in shops in Japan, just my 1 month in Japan, and it's like the one thing that's really stuck in my head. I do have a second Shop Themes episode planned, I'm just waiting to get a few more tracks together. Getting back on track here though, Shoji Meguro, the guy who composed this song, I told you about him on the first SPO episode, and to just boil it down, he's essentially the Persona guy. And that's about what I got to say on all this. So thank you, Professor Tom, for ordering this track in, and I'm pretty sure I'll be seeing more from you in the future. But now we just gotta getting on because I got a few more customers waiting to pick up their special orders. And the next one up comes from Alex Messenger, or more known in the VGM podcast circles as The Messenger, the patron saint of VGM podcasts. And he is the host of A VGM Journey. And what he'd ordered in is quite the doozy. It surely do be. It is 24-Hour Cinderella from Yakuza 0, originally composed by Zenta Tsuchihashi and originally performed by Hidenari Ugaki as Goro Majima. And this is the full spec version of the metal cover by Little V Mills.
Blog post a while ago about why I hate video games, because this is what it does. It appeals to the male fantasy.
That over-the-top madness you just heard was 24 Hour Cinderella metal cover by Little V Mills, originally from Yakuza 0, composed by Zenta Tsuchihashi, and originally performed by Hidenari Ugaki as Goro Majima. And that was requested by Alex the Messenger of a VGM Journey. And I'm going to be honest here, this is not something, either this or the original version, that I would actively listen to. I could probably appreciate it in the context of the game, which I haven't actually played any of the Yakuza series. I've been meaning to. In the context of the character Goro Majima, who sings it in like a karaoke form, and I guess there's like actually a big old number or something at some point in the game. And from what I understand, he's a pretty ridiculous character. Like in Yakuza 0, he's a little bit more subdued because, you know, he's early on, but like in the later or earlier games, but later in the timeline, I guess he's like this psychotic, super over-the-top madman. But outside of context, I've never really been able to get into this kind of music, like, you know, this kind of like, you know, anime opening or like song number and video game music and stuff. It was just kind of, just never grabbed me. And so, oh, what's this? Hold on. It's my 2-month-old kitten. Hold on. Come here, you little goblin. Yeah, there you go. Yep, this is Kutsu, and this guy's always purring. Here, take a listen. Apologies about that. Must have snuck in here the last time I went out to, you know, take a little break from this stuffy little room of mine. So he's out now. I'm just kind of glad I caught him before he decided to start climbing all over this little table of mine, you know. Yeah, he likes to get into stuff. He actually just recently gained the ability of the high jump. Not full power yet, but yeah, he's starting to get into places. Oh, he's starting to get into places. So, where was I? Oh, yes, the folks that have done this. So, start with Little V Mills. He is a remixer. He does a lot of metal covers of like video game music, anime music, you know, like kind of like pop culture movie music type stuff, meme stuff even I've seen. I haven't like listened to anything else other than this. And then Zenta Tsuchihashi, the original composer of this song, I guess he's been involved with the Yakuza series as a composer. He's done a lot of music for like anime and everything. Like the latest credit I could find was Yakuza Like a Dragon. And then the original performer, Hidenari Ugeki, as Goro Majima, but he is more famously known outside of this game as the voice actor for Donatello in the Japanese dub of the original TMNT cartoon, as well as the character Argo Golski in Mobile Fighter G Gundam. So that's about all I got to say about this. So I gotta say, Alex, thank you for requesting in this bombastic track. And now let's see, whose order is up next? Now this is a treat. This request is coming from one of my really good friends, Wade, who, you know, is one of the few people I can really just like get, you know, dig into about talking about video game music. And we get really wacky about it too. So the track that he has ordered in is Village of the Sacred Beast from Samurai Legend Musashi, composed by Masashi Hamauzu. This song was Village of the Sacred Beast from samurai legend Musashi, composed by Masashi Hamauzu. And this is one of the few, if not only, songs that has actually made me tear up, like when I first heard it. I can't quite explain what it was about it that just brought this up, and even now, every time I listen to it, I can kind of feel it trying to well up in there, and the chills just all over my body just happens. It's inexplicable. And this is a shared favorite Hamauzu track between Wade and I, alongside Abwe Chung, which I had played on the very first episode, the grand opening of VG Emporium from Saga Frontier 2. So now Wade, I won't even hesitate. He's one of my best buddies, if not the best. I've known him for the longest out of anybody I've known in our current, in my current friend group. I've known him for 20 years, since 2020 when I first moved here. And how we connected was video games. We started off by trading Game Boy Advance games. And then high school trading PS1 games. So I let him borrow Saga Frontier 2. He let me borrow Final Fantasy 8 and 9. And, so many others. And then I just remember one particular conversation, one of my favorites that we had was talking about the PSP, or the PlayStation Portable, when it was originally kind of being announced. There wasn't any specifications around it. We were just kind of guessing what it could be. Would it be a handheld that would have a huge ass disc insert spot that would play actual PS1 games? And then of course in 2005 it came out, and it was that cool oval black thing that had the little tiny UMD cartridge, disc cartridge. It was a cartridge with a disc in it. I mean, what? It was a cool thing. So yeah, we get together and ridiculousness just ensues, and of course video game music comes up almost all the time. We'll just kind of talk about what we're listening to at the moment, new things that we found. We'll share back and forth, and just get wonky. And of course there's been a few times where a few years would go, between times that we talk to each other, maybe a couple of years here, 3 years. I think the longest time actually was nearly 7 years, because in 2014 I went to San Francisco, hung out with him there before going on my backpacking trip, and then I didn't really reconnect with him until about 2021, after I had, started driving, and I drove to Oakland and hung out with him, and I've done that a couple times, and I'm gonna be trying to do it again. And I'm going to have him on as a guest on this show eventually, multiple times, because it's going to be a fun time. So now this game, Samurai Legend Musashi, it's not exactly a sequel to Brave Fencer Musashi. It's more just using the same character, but he's different. It's weird. It's weird, but the gameplay is different. Whereas Brave Fencer Musashi was kind of like a diagonal top-down action RPG. This is a from the back action RPG. I can't remember if you can control the camera or something, and it works kind of like Mega Man, where you can actually choose where you go, what stages you go to take on, and has some RPG elements. You gain some new techniques and skills and stuff. And I bought this game because I had heard the music. I found all Musashi Hamauzu's music, and I was like, whoa, okay, I'm gonna go find this game and play it, and it was okay. And then the music, for the most part, top notch. And Masashi Hamauzu, I've already talked about him in my Masters of VGM episode back in June. He was one of my main features. And but also, I would highly recommend you go check out Volt Supreme's Synth VGM Dream Machine, where he did an episode of all about Masashi Hamauzu for his Masters of VGM as well. It's a really fun episode to listen to. He played a lot more of his music and kind of covered some blind spots that I had on my episode, and vice versa. So Wade, my buddy guy, thank you so much for ordering this track in. Again, it brought all those chills and all those good feelings in. And I know I'll be seeing more orders coming in from you, and eventually, hopefully, have your voice on this show as well. So now the next order I have in here is from a guy that I featured on episode 25, the Sega Genesis Mega Drive chiptune scene of the 2010s. It comes in from Dia, Aaron Hickman. And what he has requested is an original NES/Famicom chiptune, Those Glowing Trees, Part 2, by Fezuke. That was Those Glowing Trees, Part 2, by Fezuke. It is the original NES/Famicom chiptune, using a combination of the VRC6 and 4 of 8 of the wavetable channels from the Namco 163 expansion chip. And this is special ordered in by Dia. And part of me's still amazed that I haven't heard this until now, and I said the same thing to Dia, and he said that, right? Dread might have sent this to me years back, or maybe it was on my chiptune feed on SoundCloud. He can't quite remember, but yeah, I'm just still baffled how this just eluded me all this time until now. But, there's also so many chiptunes that have been going on for the last 10, 15 years now that, it's pretty easy to miss, some of them. So, this one, Fezuke, like I said, I had never actually heard of until Dia just showed it to me. And, I went back, and he's been doing it for 10 years, since 2012, and all of it's really good, all NES chiptunes. But you wouldn't be able to go off that by his profile picture, because it's a photo of Kirby, but with, this huge rictus smile and blood all over him, and, these really angry eyes, and it's going to be on the title card, so you'll get to see that. So now, you may be a little baffled as to how I mean that this is composed with 2 sound chips. Well, with FamiTracker, or maybe it could have been at this time OOC Tracker, or 00C Tracker, or whichever it is, you had to run 2 instances. So, one instance would be VRC6, the other would be Namco 163, and then you would just compose both of them side by side, and then you'd be able to actually sync them to where, you played one and the other would play along with it, and that's how you get it. And how I found out what the chips they were using was in just a comment, and also in that same comment, he mentioned that he used the samples from Esper Dreams 2, which I featured a couple times on my show already. But now you may be asking, how did he get 2 chips to play at once? Well, that would be because, running 2 instances of FamiTracker, one running the VRC6 expansion chip and then one running the Namco 163 expansion chip, and then they just get synced up and they can play at the same time at the same BPM, hertz, whatever you want to call it, and then you export it to WAV. I think you can export it to NSF. I'm not sure how that functionality works between 2 instances at once, but yeah, it's kind of a cool little trick. And any other chiptunes you'd never expect to see matched together, that's how you would have to do it. Run one instance of one program and an instance of another. Until now, within the last year, there's been a tracker called Furnace Tracker that actually emulates all these different sound chips. I think it's up to 50 now, and it emulates all the NES expansion chips. So now you can actually have all of them going in one instance of a program. Or you can mix it with other sound chips. You can have the 2A03 with the YM2612, or have the the SID chip along with the VRC7, or whatever combination you want. Or you can just pick and choose an individual channel from each chip and just put them all in there and just go crazy. I haven't had a chance to mess with it because I've been having a hard time transitioning my brain back to desktop work, because I've been using Deflamask on my phone for the last almost 3 years now, because ever since the pandemic, the shutdowns of the pandemic started in 2020. So yeah, that's gonna be a process. But when it does happen, I'm going to have fun just kind of messing around with all these combinations I've been kind of wanting to try out for a while. And yeah, I'm hoping to see you playing around with this thing as well, because like I said, all those combinations are insane, and I just love to see what you'd be able to do with it. Thank you for this request. I'm going to be checking out, Fezuke's back catalog, and if this track is anything to go off of, it's all going to be good. So this brings us to our second of the 3 returning customers. This is a request from Jameson, host of Bar Silence, a VGM podcast, and what he's requested in is Like the Wind from the game Elemental Masters, composed by Toshiharu Yamanishi. That was Like the Wind from Elemental Masters, composed by Toshiharu Yamanishi, also known as Suronin or Funky Suronin. And that was special ordered in by Jameson, host of Bar Silence, a VGM podcast. And there's a little note that he left on his order card here. It says, I love everything about this song by Toshiharu Yamanishi. This whole soundtrack is 1980s synth to the max, but this particular track's constant bass notes and synth bursts make this one stand out to me. This YM2612 stuff is incredible. Technosoft soundtracks are always so good. Yeah, and the reason why this sounds so good, and may sound somewhat familiar to some of you that are Mega Drive heads, is that Toshiharu Yamanishi also composed the music for both Thunder Force 3 and 4, as well as Dragon's Fury, and of course Thunder Forces 3 and 4 have just astounding soundtracks on the Sega Genesis Mega Drive. Just everything about it just sounds so good. And whereas Jameson likes that pulsing bass tone, I'm really all about that percussion. Because, a lot of times when you think percussion made just using the FM on the Sega Genesis, you think kind of like tinny, twarpy, not twarpy, but kind of flarpy, flat, kind of like no body to it. But when it's done right, like this, it's just like so much better than, what the sample channel could do at times. And Toshiharu gets it right. So now, I've already told you he did Thunder Force 3 and 4 on the Sega Genesis. He also did Devil's Crush on the PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16, which was then ported to Sega Genesis as Dragon's Fury. He would go on to do the music for Marine No Atelier, Aline No Atelier, Princess Waltz, Lys No Atelier, and then Dragon Force 6. And between all these, he'd be doing original music as well as a lot of arrange albums and compilations. Not much more to say on this other than that, Elemental Masters is a pretty dang good OST, and I would recommend you go check it out. So thank you, Jameson, for ordering this in. And that brings us to our last special order, and this one comes in from Martyrus, host of ReVGM Podcast. And wouldn't you know it, it's a cover of Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure, originally composed by Jun Senoue, Kenichi Tokoi, and Fumi Kumatani. And this is Emerald Coast VRC6 cover by JX. that was Emerald Coast, VRC6 cover by JX. The original track being composed by Jun Senoue, Kenichi Tokoi, and Fumie Kumatani. And that was special ordered in by Martyris, host of ReVGM Podcast, a podcast that specializes in remixes, covers, and rearrangements of video game music. And one thing I gotta say is that bass is pretty dang beefy and gritty, and that's due to the use of the sawtooth of the VRC6 along with the triangle of the stock NES sound chip. And just using that to kind of get like that almost kind of a dat Sunsoft bass tone, but still being able to use that sample channel for the percussion. This is all together well put together arrangement by JX. And this guy has done does a lot of like NES Famicom chiptune covers of Sonic music, as well as original music inspired by Sonic music, so it kind of sounds like Sonic music, but done with like the NES sound chips. And this kind of brings me to, he does have an alternate account on SoundCloud called JX Alt, where he uses other sound chips to do more covers. For example, he did one of Lupin the Third's theme using patches from Mega Man The Wily Wars, like Sega Genesis, and it sounds pretty good. As far as these three original composers, Jun Senoue, Kenichi Tokoi, and Fumi Kumatani, I already talked about them on my Sonic the Hedgehog Zone Act 1 episode, which actually featured my nephew talking a little bit about Sonic music, and that's a fun one to check out. And I can definitely say that JX will show up, if not on Act 2, then Act 3 of Sonic Hedgehog Zone, because what my plan is to do Sonic Hedgehog Zone Act 2 about remixes about Sonic music, and then Sonic Hedgehog Act 3, which will be talking about music that, original music, but it is inspired by Sonic in the way how it sounds. They are going to take a while to get to because there's a lot of remixes and a lot of original music inspired by Sonic the Hedgehog music. A lot. Oh, and as a cool little side note is that actually, listening to this version, I can hear compositionally like a lot of similarities between, this song and the music from Sonic 3D Blast. And a cool little factoid is that a couple of the stages in Sonic Adventure actually reuses music from Sonic 3D Blast. Those being the music for Panic Puppet being turned into Twinkle Cart for Twinkle Park, and Green Grove being turned into The Air for Windy Valley. So it's kind of a fun thing to just go listen to these side by side and hear what changed and what stayed the same. So Martyrs, I'd like to thank you for ordering this one in and helping to add to the stockpile of stuff that I'm trying to get ready for my next 2 Sonic Hedgehog episodes. So yeah, and I'd like to thank everybody else who has special ordered stuff in for this episode. So that's Martyrs, Jameson, Alex the Messenger, Wade, Dia, and Professor Tom. I'd like to thank you all for doing business here at VG Emporium. And of course, I'll be linking their, respective sites on the show notes, like be it for their shows or music. And to all of you folks listening, remember, you can send a special order in to vgemporium@gmail.com. And I will, like I said, stockpile them up and then play them in a batch. So now where can you find VG Emporium elsewhere is on Twitter, Instagram, all your favorite podcatchers such as Spotify, Apple, Google, Audible, and then you can find myself, Rage Cage, at Twitter, Instagram, on SoundCloud for all my original musics, as well as Facebook sometimes. So thank you all for stopping into VG Emporium. See you next week.